Is just after 7 o'clock, 7:01. We're going to go ahead and get our meeting started. Before we go through Chapter A here, I want to let the council know that made an agreement with members of the Building Commission, Tom Amon, who's on the phone with Steptoe and Johnson. We are going to move F1 up to coincide with B1 while Tom is on the phone, and we will go ahead and take care of that issue while the members of the Planning Commission are here. Okay, so let's go ahead and have our moment of silence, and then we'll go through with our meeting. Thank you. Mr. Simmons, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, under recognized guests, as we just mentioned, we've got Tom Amon with Steptoe and Johnson. Tom O'Neill is also present, and then we've got several members of the city's building commission present. And so we're going to go ahead and hear a presentation relative to F1. Tom Amon or Tom O'Neill, I will defer to you to start the conversation.
Happy to do it, whatever your pleasure is, Tom O'Neill.
Sure. What we're talking about here is, I think everybody is familiar with the transaction at kind of a 20,000 foot level. The building commission will take title to the property. The city general fund will then lease the property from the building commission, and the city council will sublease a portion of it to the waste board. That's the basic structure of the transaction. The purpose of the ordinance that the city council has before it tonight is to authorize the building commission to take title to the property and to authorize the lease of the property by the general fund from the building commission. That lease is subject to the standard non-appropriation clause. It's pretty straightforward from there. Tom, did I leave anything pertinent out?
Very well said. And again, I would just reiterate this notion of utilizing the building commission with the city being involved in the annual appropriation lease arrangement. It's just something that's been blessed by our West Virginia Supreme Court in a number of cases as they not violating the constitutional prohibition on incurring debt by municipalities. So that's why we're entering into this type of structure. Happy to answer any questions, but basically the ordinance has been well stated. The bulk of the work here with respect to the bond issue is done by the building commission, and they're the party to most of the documents and actually issue the bond. But the city is the party to the lease. The building commission assigns its rights into the lease and the lease rentals to the bondholder as security for the bond. And as Mr. O'Neill had mentioned, the lease has to contain an annual appropriation clause in it, again, to avoid those investment requirements. So happy to answer any questions or provide any more detail anyone might like to hear as to that.
Does anybody have any questions for Tom or any members of the building commission who are here?
Doesn't appear so.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and call for the question under F1 to consider the adoption on first reading an ordinance of the city which authorizes the acquisition of the by the City of Buckhannon Building Commission, henceforth the Building Commission, of real property located in the vicinity of 395 Mudlick Road to be used by the city as public works facilities, the leasing of such real property, and all improvements and appurtenances thereto. It's hard to say that with a mask on. By the City of Buckhannon Building Commission, the sale and issuance by the Building Commission of its lease revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $1.6 million for the purpose of financing the cost of the acquisition of such real property, the execution and delivery by the city of an agreement and lease and other documents in connection with such financing. That is what we're asking the council to authorize this evening. At this time, I'd entertain a motion that we accept.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Mr. Rigger, a second by Mrs. Albaugh. Is there further discussion on the matter? Hearing the need for none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those like sign opposed? The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay. Tom, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. And just a side note, real quickly, we will go ahead and advertise. We typically do a public hearing for the city council on the next reading of this prior to enactment, due to the fact that it might be considered a revenue raising measure under the municipal code. So we'll handle publication of that legal ad, and so we'll just make sure we get that on the agenda for the next council meeting. But appreciate it, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much for all your help and all your work with this, Tom.
Thank you.
Happy to do it.
All right, have a great evening.
Thanks also to the members of the Building Commission who are present tonight.
At this time, if the members of the Building Commission would want to exit, you're free to do so. I know you want to go home and enjoy the rest of your evening. With that, yes, ma'am?
I have a question.
Yes.
It wasn't clearly answered the last time we met. What inspection was done on the property that you're purchasing as far as environmental hazards?
There really wasn't any inspection done on it relative to environmental hazard. All of the members of council, as well at different times, as well as our city attorney and director of public works, visited the facility with the owner of the property and thoroughly went through it. But based on what was there before and what the property's been used to up to this point, it didn't seem as though it was a necessary step. We didn't want to unnecessarily throw a monkey wrench into the purchase of the property or potentially drive the cost up for our taxpayers when it didn't seem as though it was pertinent, necessary at the time.
You know, I think part of it is the usage of the property. This was a company that sold drill heads and cutters and pipe. It wasn't someone who was storing and dispersing chemicals.
Correct.
So, from my, seeing that there and understanding what their role was, I don't think there was anything to contaminate the ground, and there really wasn't anything. The buildings were empty and clean, and so.
Okay. Well, I was questioned because the area looks like it's got a toxic atmosphere to it.
It's been an industrial site. I mean,
True.
The railroad's right along the back border, and you had the other manufacturing facility in the front of it. So I don't really know what went on there before the building was built. I mean,
Well, Mike said that the way I understood it was the original building is the building where there's some office space. The other two buildings have been recently built on 3-foot concrete pads, heated floors, and then they're just metal buildings going up around those concrete pads. Those have been constructed fairly recently. and probably at the request of a tenant or so, or to attract a tenant. The original building, which is at the furthest point away from the Weston Road on the property, it's really not much different than the other two buildings, except for the fact that it does have office space, professional office space attached to it, and it is larger than the other two. There was no ground penetration at that site relative to the oil and gas business. There was nothing drilled there. There was nothing. There were no tanks in the ground. There's nothing underneath that would require us to, have to dig up or to reclimate. It's just, Jerry.
I would just add to that the site's conducive to our needs. We're going to conduct similar operations as to what the previous tenants did on that site. And we operate an industrial site just across the road there. So that was what made it so attractive to us.
And there's no issue as far as people working in the offices there?
No.
Currently we work in the offices on our industrial site, which is a transfer station.
Okay.
A landfill, essentially. We transfer garbage from that point. So we take in a lot of different types of waste at that facility. So,
Okay.
no, probably less so in the office. I'm usually one that's in the office. Nothing wrong with me.
That explains a lot.
A little close here.
Well, the last meeting, Matt Kerner was the one that raised the concerns about any kind of environmental studies, and there are different levels of environmental studies. And I raised an issue with Andy at one point in time that I think a level 1 environmental study would be appropriate, or a disclaimer in the final draft of purchasing the property. That may create a problem, but I think that's important oftentimes to make sure that you're getting the piece of property without any other kind of conditions. Or maybe take a look at Smith Transfer. What information do they have before they purchase the property? And I'm sure they would probably share that.
They never purchased it. They only leased it from Mike.
Okay. Then I would look at the person under before Mike.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you all for your work and
Yeah,
for your
thank you.
service on the commission. Okay. Moving along with our agenda, we will ask. Is that working okay, Andy? Yeah. Okay. We'll ask for Dr. Samples, Dr. Stankus, and Mrs. Erin Anderson to come forth, please. We've got a nice presentation. One that I would also ask Council Lady Allball to be a part of, seeing as how she is partly responsible here. All right, Erin, if you want to come up front here with me, please.
Sarah coming too?
When we do the picture,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
we'll include everybody.
She's not shy.
So, as I'm sure it's well known by now, Upshur County is home to the 2021 West Virginia Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Erin Anderson. Allball Anderson, I should note, which is why we're asked Mrs. Mary Allball to be here. Erin and my history goes back a long time. I've played soccer with her brother. I think she might have babysat a few times. So I've known Erin all my life. She's known me all of my life as well. She's just a little bit older than me. But she's certainly an asset to Buckhannon, to Upshur County. I'm always thrilled to tout when a fellow Buckhannon Upshur grad is doing great things in life, and Erin certainly is. So let me read this proclamation and present it to her. I don't do this very much. So this is actually, I think this is the first one I've actually initiated to do that hasn't been part of a state initiative. So, Mayor's Proclamation. Whereas longtime Buckhannon Upshur resident Erin Anderson has been an excellent contributor to the educational life of Upshur County youth for decades. First and foremost as a dedicated educator and coach, but also as a loving daughter, wife, and mother. And whereas Erin Anderson has been teaching for 20 years, enriching the minds and lives of her students at Tennerton Elementary School, and inspiring them to set and achieve things for themselves and in their communities. And whereas Erin Anderson is a proud and supportive alumna of Buckhannon's West Virginia Wesleyan and Buckhannon Upshur High School, having earned her bachelor's degree in elementary education as a member of the class of 1999. And whereas Erin Anderson has been a leader throughout her career, including serving as an officer in the Faculty Senate and as a member of the Title I Interview and Leadership Committees. She has given of herself as president of the Upshur County Reading Council and as an assistant volleyball coach at Buckhannon Upshur Middle School. And whereas Erin Anderson has touched thousands of lives during her long tenure through her passionate and compassionate service within the Upshur County school system, and whereas Erin Anderson has been named West Virginia's Teacher of the Year for 2021, making our Buckhannon Upshur community very proud, where she will serve not only as an ambassador for her profession as an educator, but also as an ambassador for Buckhannon and Upshur County as well. And whereas our Buckhannon Upshur community appreciates and values the longtime efforts, energy, and dedication of one of our finest residents and wishes to honor and commend Erin Anderson in her continued positive mission. So now, therefore, I, Robert Neal Skinner III, Mayor of the City of Buckhannon, pursuant to the power and authority duly vested in me, do hereby proclaim Thursday, November 5th, 2020, to be Erin Anderson Day throughout the City of Buckhannon. That renews, by the way. I further urge all of our residents to greet our community's most honored citizen, along with her family, friends, during this most special day. And as I mentioned, Mary Altball has had a significant impact in Erin's life, so it comes full circle here to our council. So Erin, congratulations. Smile with your eyes.
Make me cry.
Anything you two would like to say? And before we finish the pictures, we want to get Dr. Stankus and Dr. Samples up here as well for some photos. So be thinking about what you want to say. So Mary, get in here.
Too many girls.
Never.
Well, get up here, CJ.
Well, I'm just taking cheap shots from the peanut gallery.
You don't want to ruin the picture, probably.
Do you get one time?
We'd only be doing that if you were in the picture, Dave.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Where would you like for me to speak from?
Up here is fine. They'll be able to hear you on the microphone.
Yeah, that'll work. I'll sit down.
Okay. I appreciate you having me. This is just still so cool to me. As you all know, I have an 8-year-old daughter, Hayden, Mary's granddaughter, and she thinks I'm famous. And she can't figure out when we go to Walmart why people don't just stop in their tracks and wait for me to walk past, or why when we do grocery pickup now, why they don't know who I am, or on Teacher Tuesday when we go through the drive-thru, why they ask to see my ID. She said, "Tell them, Mom." And a couple days ago she said, "Mom, let's go to the mall to see if they recognize you." And I said, "I'm sure you're going to be disappointed. They're not going to know." And she said, "Well, just wear your outfit. Wear the one in the pictures." I said, "Okay, we'll just do that." So I know, obviously, several council members probably mentioned that I babysat him. It's been a pleasure to watch you take on this new role. CJ, I've known you my whole life. I know Joel played soccer with Clifford. Jack hired me, but I never got to work for Jack at the middle school. And of course, Mary, the saint who put up with my dad for at least 25 years. I love the way you love me and our family.
Oh, baby.
So what does this honor mean to me? I've had about a month for it to sink in, and I've been told that the real work begins in January. But since the announcement, it's been a whirlwind of newspapers, local and state news outlets, billboards, almost wrecked. Pulled over the sheets and he goes, "Oh, Mom, not again." I said, "Yep, again, here we go." I was on talk line with Hoppy. I've attended local and state Board of Education meetings, written numerous speeches. I've received so many messages and texts and emails and calls and phone calls, cards. I read everything or try to respond to everything that I can. It's really important for me to do that. I've been overwhelmed by the outpouring of support from our community. I'm looking forward to the next year, plus a couple months, of appearances and engagements, in person and virtual, committee meetings, board meetings, travel. I'm honestly already starting to grieve some time away from my classroom and grieve the time away from my kids, but I know this is God's plan for me right now. For some reason, He believes I'm the person to do this job at this time. Several friends have said, "Ann, I'm so sorry that you're not winning in a normal year, that you're winning during a pandemic." And to them I say, the timing is perfect. A little bit about my platform, which is the teacher identity and how it all came to be. So it was sort of by accident. Dr. Stankus and my principal, Mr. Gray, we were on a call with the 5 finalists and their superintendents and principals. And I thought that it was going to be a very informal panel discussion. And the way the state superintendent of schools began to ask questions, I thought, oh gosh, this feels like a group interview. And so as I listened and he called everybody's name but mine, I was like, oh my gosh, they've already mentioned this, or they've already mentioned this. And I thought about what the others had said and about the impact that the pandemic had on our students and families, about equity and accessibility. And no one was blaming anyone. Every finalist was very positive. And then I remembered that although it felt like a group interview, this was a panel discussion, so I decided when he finally called on me to speak from my heart and to talk about something no one had yet mentioned, the teachers and how we were doing. I shared that evening that I get my value from the work I do and the time I spend with kids celebrating their successes in the classroom. And I shared my excitement with going back to school and that we'd probably never take for granted in-person learning ever again. And at that time I said, as teachers we get our identity from our work in the classroom, and until we have our students in front of us again, felt like something was missing. And after those first few days with kids back in our building and our people in front of us, we were back and we were ready to teach. Just as students needed teachers, the teachers needed their students. I call it the heart of a teacher or our teacher identity. It's just who we are. It's when we're the happiest. I call it my happy place. When I'm in front of a classroom full of kids or half full of kids or staring at their heads on Teams meetings, I'm more me in that moment than at any other time. Just for the record, even on a Teams meeting, they raise their hands to go to the bathroom. Just put that out there. Not much has changed on the Teams meet on that end, and it's contagious as well, just like in the classroom. I'm forever grateful for this recognition. It ranks up there with having a child, getting my master's degree, the hardest, most rewarding experiences up until this point. But what I know today, and what you all know because you know me, is that the awards and the proclamations and the big checks and the new car won't change me, nor will they define me. I'm so proud to be the 2021 West Virginia Teacher of the Year, proud to represent Tenerton Elementary School. I'm a Tenerton Tiger, and Upshur County Schools. This community has helped shape me into the teacher and leader that I am. And as I prepare to lead, I hope you will always see me as you see me today, rocking back and forth, vulnerable and hardworking, compassionate and authentic, the Erin you already know with the fancy new title. And we have some gifts for you. Dr. Stankus is gonna, we can't mask our BU pride here. So,
I stand in her shadow.
She said I'm going to sign in as the mother of the bride.
I'll put this in my script.
Also with us is Dr. Samples, who is our board president. She's also one of my very, very best friends. And just thank you so much for your support through this whole just whirlwind. Very recently, I submitted my national application, and we could win.
We have a very good chance.
We could win. So hopefully we'll come back with that.
I hope so.
You're an inspiration and you're very articulate.
Yeah, very well said.
Extremely well spoken.
Well,
Yeah.
can I
Congratulations.
mention
You can
this?
say
Something? When we were there at the Opera House, and everything was virtual and everything, and Hayden broke down and cried.
Oh, she's
Because she was happy at first, you know, because we were doing the happy dance and everything. But when she found out her mom was going to have to go away, she bawled.
She did. She said,
She did.
"Where are you, Mom? If you win National Teacher of the Year,
And Mike's
I'll
trying to
send you
console her.
She said, "You'll have to go to China or Antarctica." Is that where they send us? But I also have to tell you this funny story. So we get home from that evening, and I had received a bunch of balloons, and we have cats, so I had the balloons in my room. And Hayden found them, the 8-year-old. She found them, and she wanted the balloons, obviously. So she took them to her room. So she shuts the door so the cats can't get to the balloons. And we're celebrating, and I'm reading texts and just, you know, having family stuff, homework probably. And I hear something in her room, and I just didn't know what it was. And then a few minutes later, she goes in and she says, "Mom, come here." I said, "Okay." So the ceiling fan in her room, when she flipped her light on, the ceiling fan had taken this big, 12 balloons and wrapped them around. It was wrapped so tight, the ceiling fan was not going anywhere. So here I am in my Teacher of the Year outfit, just, one of my prizes. I'm on a chair, cutting the strings of the balloons off of this fan. I forgot to turn the fan off. So I'm dodging the fan, thinking, oh, wouldn't that be a sight for the state superintendent to come and see? My head. So anyway, real life happening at our house. So anyway, thank you so much.
We're so proud of you, and we're proud that you're part of our town and our community, and we hope that next year will be good to you, and we know that you'll be good to the state. So thank you for everything.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you all so much.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I never had a teacher like you. Our
Watch that
superintendent.
line of the ears, Thomas.
Yeah. Look what happened.
But look what it shows. All right. The pomp and circumstance part of the evening is concluded. We are down to our information coordinator under our department and board reports. Callie, are you with us this evening?
I am. Thank you very much. You have in your packet my report, just starting out with the PR and the website and the social media. You can see the information we've been sharing over the last few weeks. And of course, a lot of it still has been COVID related, and information about the county case counts, as well as the availability of free testing, and which is ongoing. In addition to that, we thank First Energy Foundation and Art 26201 for 5,000 gifts there for the Colonial Theater. We have 2 new American hybrid chestnut trees at Riverwalk Park. We did a little PR about that. That was in collaboration with our horticulturist, Dixie Green, as well as Donnie Tenney and the Westmont High RC&D. And so those are the newest trees down that Riverwalk, and pretty cool to have that historical context too, since the chestnut tree has been largely wiped out. But this new hybrid tree will be able to withstand the blight, so That was fun to work on. I'm currently working with Buck and the sanitary sewer plant to do a story on their new UV system, ultraviolet disinfection system, and how much that is safer not only for the plant employees but for the community and the watershed as a whole, while still being, highly effective at disinfecting the water before it's returned to the watershed. I touched on this previously, but the Volunteer Center Wi-Fi hotspots have been doing well. Deborah had mentioned at the Stalkers meeting earlier this week that Wi-Fi was, a huge improvement for the students that are over there. And it's been good for the Volunteer Center as well because I've noticed we're getting a lot of views on the website and Facebook for the Volunteer Center. And it was, obviously a bump since those hotspots came online. So that's been win-win, continues to be win-win. Working with Jeff and the waste department on some PR on the bulky goods collection, and let's see, just continuing, running the go-to meetings, updating the website with our minutes and agendas, all that sort of good stuff. Moving down to grants, we did receive the official notice that we were not receiving the FEMA SAFER grant for hiring those 3 additional firefighters. And so a little disappointing, but I'll read you part of the email we received, and it says, as you are aware, the SAFER program is among the Department of Homeland Security's and FEMA's most competitive grant programs. In fiscal year 2019, FEMA received over 1,200 SAFER applications requesting more than $1 billion in federal assistance. The large number of applications received and the finite amount of available funding resulted in many commendable applicants not being funded and accentuates the highly competitive nature of this program. FEMA encourages your organization to apply for funding through fiscal year 2020. They go on to list some resources that you can use to evaluate your application and just ways to improve. Of course, we'll work with Fire Chief Kimball and JB and discuss if you want to go forward with that again next year. But I think they're looking for some more detail and analysis on how you've come to request the additional firefighters as well as the specific benefits to the community. We had a lot of that in there, but again, they're looking for more detail while also limiting you strictly to the number of characters. So it's kind of a tough one for sure, but I would be happy to work on that again with JB and the fire department. I've also been assisting the Watershed Association with an AFD remediation grant and Stream Partners grants. I'll be working again on our CARES Act application for October, working with Jerry and Brad and the sign guy on the path, 5K routes, as well as some rack cards and narrative, our PR to go along with that. We do have Aaron up on the LED sign, their sheet still, and soon we'll be adding to that a recognition and honor of Veterans Day coming up. And that's what I have, unless you have questions.
Any questions or comments for Callie? It is, Mary just whispered, I'm going to repeat what she said. Wow, that's a lot of work. And it is a lot of work, and we appreciate everything you do for us, Callie.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
All right, have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Callie.
All right, Public Works Director, Gary Arnold.
Good evening, folks. We received our first load of concrete today to fill our silo, and we'll be having online training next Monday, and then in-person training with the Fiore rep on the 17th and 18th to the fall. We'll be pouring actually batches of concrete pouring those 2 days. With that being said, tomorrow we're going to be doing some test samples, some test core samples on a couple different mixes that Jay's come up with, and actually just want to throw in RDR has been great with helping us out. They actually shared their one of their mixes as well as provided us with some chemical additives that we needed for this test tomorrow. So I just wanted to say they've been really good to work with. Street crews finished up the paving on the Foster lot. We have a small amount of curbing to complete there, and this encapsulates a green space there against Spring Street sidewalk. And again, we'll be back to the Gateway West project next week and the week after. We'll pull off to do the training, but we'll be back on that project as well. Sewer, I have nothing new from last report, as well as water or waste. And under the engineering report, Jay has been working on the tentative booster station, provided the proposed property acquisition to the property owners Redstone last week for review by their board. The additional acreage is required for the construction upgrades to the booster station, including the incorporation of the ACT booster station pumps into the design. The FEMA #2 generator grant, you received news from FEMA that the change of scope request for the additional monies, the $64,000 has been approved. Once the necessary paperwork is received, he'll process it and then advertise the project and begin accepting bids. He was told to expect the paperwork before the end of 2020. And of course, the Elizabeth J. Binky Poundstone River Walk Trail Extension #4 received the notification from the governor's office last week that the construction phase of the trail extension has been approved, and the estimated cost of construction phase of the project is $240,785.89. That includes a 13% contingency per the DOH requirements. He's not received the notice to proceed on the project, but he anticipates it will be provided late spring, early summer of next year. That's all I have, Mayor, unless there's questions.
Gary, are you putting the silo, or do you have intentions once we acquire the new property to move it over there, or?
Actually, long-range planning, CJ, depending on how this goes with our batching our concrete, long-range planning, again, that's what made the property so attractive, or one of the reasons was, is the ability to get, yes, a railhead there and be able to actually have a larger silo, permanent silo, and this silo then would be trailer mounted, and we'd be, as Jack had mentioned when we talked about this, about the ability of being portable. That way we'll be able to, on-site, when we have large projects just like Gateway West, we'll be able to have this silo on-site, so we're not killing our machine or wasting time in transit with the machine back and forth. And
great.
I kind of said today to the guys that, imagine sometimes my head goes off in the clouds dreaming, but I said, imagine, the city being to the point where every department may have one of these small batch trucks, and we have a centralized hub for materials. And I said, we could be at that point sometime in the future, depending on the expansion of the city. So that's part of the project with the property out there on Mud Lake. It gives us the ability to expand if and hopefully we need to.
Great.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, Finance Director, Ann Beryl Dickens.
Good evening.
Hello.
I'll give you a report of balances October the 31st. So general fund money market and checking had $1,399,961. We received, the reason that's up a little bit is because we received $216,000 in the B&O. That was some third quarter reporting that came in. $132,000 ad valorem taxes. People are paying their taxes about this time of the year. We received the $67,000 from the theater grant. We had extended it, so we didn't get the money until a little later, and it's in this fiscal year. And we received 2 CARES reimbursements, $154,000. Your revenues for October were $774,000, and your expenses were $412,000. Your CD and general fund remains the same at $85,664. Historic landmark savings the same, $3,023. Fire truck savings, that truck's not going to be here till next year sometime, but that'll be expensed once we get the truck, $38,348. Coal tax money market and checking was $50,954. Municipal stabilization fund, $514,550. Flood control account, $9,388. Consolidated Public Works Fund, $130,736. The Stockard Youth Center capital campaign is $438,767. That includes $12,000 pledge. And I might note that individuals have donated towards the Roy Long Memory in the amount of $1,000, and that was from various individuals, Nancy and Burton Hunter, Kelly Cunningham, Barry Hess, Daya Wright, Alex Russ, Bill Thurman, Dave McCauley, and Joyce Harris Thacker. Then sales tax account, we received our third quarter sales tax revenues, and that was $467,636. That brought our sales tax account up to $875,629. It was actually $900,000, and we took that $75,000 out and put it into the stormwater fund. So if you'll remember, you have about $950,000 of that sales tax money committed towards general fund, and you've made that already. So kudos to that. And December's coming up sooner than later, and we will be doing budget revisions. And so I'll be coming back to you with your thoughts on some of that, how you want to disperse some of these extra revenues that we got. And in your bills to be approved, there's several worth mentioning. Record Delta publication for the general fund balance sheet was $1,643. We expensed $1,000 to Microsoft that earns money on that money that on the property that we were talking about tonight earlier. $5,500 went to Kalia for the on-site assessment. Matt's told you we're extremely close to that being them to come in to do their on-site assessment and eventually being certified. $5,000 was expensed to Shallow Creek Kennels for the K9 unit, 6-week handler course, and $1,200 United Rotary Brush for gutter brooms, $2,800 to Ascent Consulting for concrete testing construction inspector at the Gateway West program project, $12,072 Appalachia Roofing for the theater big flagship. And I think that's it. You're in real nice financial position this month. Any questions?
I don't really have a question, but I know you and I talked about this before, Andy. I believe it was last week, or the last time. Since I've been on the council, our rainy day fund has been basically almost the same amount of money every year. And now that we have passed the sales tax, which has really provided us with much needed revenue so we can do things that need to be done for the city long term, such as the Mud Lick property and so forth. I think one of the budgetary items we should have each year is to determine what the strategic rainy day fund should be and put $50,000 to $100,000 every year into it. Am I correct? You've told me I think it's 30% of the general fund
budget.
Yeah, I think that's a goal that we should have. And, with the infrastructure and the goings on with the city and everything, I know unfortunately we don't get much money with a CD. When I first got elected years ago, the CD interest rate was much nicer than it is today, but at the same time, we get really great rates when we have to purchase something, such as the property. But I would like to have a rainy day fund at least get to $1 million at some point in time. I think we should do it in a very, a thoughtful way. And I don't know what the right amount is each year, 50, 75, 100, but I would look for you to make a recommendation sometime when we start the budget. But thank you for what you do.
Yep.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Andy.
Council, would it be okay while JB is giving his report that we go ahead and talk about F2? He's going to be speaking to us at part of his report about the change order request relative to the fire truck. That'd be okay?
Sure.
Sure. All right, JB, you are up, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In your package, you'll have the date to the end of September. We've had 870 responses to the end of September. Also in that packet, you can look at each individual's percentage of the calls they make and what type of calls. We had 86 calls in the month of September. Call volume is down about 9% from 2019. And that's mostly still due to the March, April, May when the whole state was locked down with COVID. We only responded to fires and major car wrecks and stuff like that, so we ramped back up. The percentages are still about the same, 64 and 36, 64% in the city, 36% outside the city, and mutual aid, which is, other fire districts. So far, we have had 53 COVID tests administered to people in our organization. All have come back negative. Something, we need to touch base on, we changed our time, our clock last weekend. So that's the notification to change your batteries in your smoke detectors. That's a big thing to save people's lives, especially here in West Virginia. We have the highest rate of death and fires per capita in the country, which is terrible. In the majority of those fires, people do not have smoke detectors. We do have smoke detectors at the firehouse if somebody needs. Still working on our policy book. I have one more policy that I've passed to our the rest of the officers in the department to make sure it's worded correctly and that they approve it. We will be handing those out December 1st to all our mutual aid departments, and it'll go into effect on January 1, 2021. And the mutual aid departments will have to sign the mutual aid agreement. They will be given copies of all our policies, and if they're going to run mutual aid with us in our district, they will have to adhere to those policies that are put in place. A big thing coming up next week. What's that? Somebody have a question?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, next Thursday at the volunteer meeting, the volunteers paralleling with the city because our accreditation, we have to try to align as much as possible between the two organizations going through the accreditation process, because if you have two different sets of rules, it'll never work. We are putting in place a drug testing policy for all our volunteers. January 1, next month, everybody that's in the volunteer organization, minus the paid staff, because we're already under the city policy, will be drug tested. And from that point on, it'll be random throughout the year, and anybody new that joins the volunteer organization will be drug tested also. In the last couple of months, 2 firemen have died in the state of West Virginia from drug overdoses. So it's a new world out there, and it's one thing taking care of our people in our organization, taking care of our organization, and looking after the city, and also looking after our citizens to make sure the people we are sending to incidents are clean and clear. So that'll be starting in December, and January 1, it'll go completely in effect as a random drug testing. As Callie said, our SAFER grant was denied. We were also denied, the volunteers had put in for new air packs on an assistance to firefighter grant, and that also was denied. And the Buckhannon Volunteer Fire Department has purchased over $50,000 of new equipment for the new fire engine that will be here next year. These purchases included new hearse rescue tools, which a lot of people know them by the jaws of life. The total cost of that was $37,000. New rescue jacks, which we use for stabilization when we extricate people out of cars. Those 3 jacks and all the accessories that went with them were $14,000. And new positive pressure fans. We've always had gas-powered positive pressure fans, which ventilate smoke-out houses. In today's world, we are converted to battery-operated, which is a lot cleaner, quieter, and works very well. And that was a $5,000 fan, and they purchased several other small items, handles, and stuff like that. The last thing I have is I'm going to be talking to the mayor and over the next week, next Thursday, the volunteers will have to decide whether we're going to have a Christmas parade or not. We really need to look at this and see what's best for our community. So I just want you to be aware of that as things go down the pipe, whether we will be able to have a Christmas parade or not. So unless you have any questions about that, I can move on to the change order on the truck.
Okay, let's go ahead and proceed.
Okay, in your package, there should be a change order. What evolved from this was 2 members of the truck committee took a trip to Columbus, Ohio, where something fire truck manufacturing is. And they went all over the specs that we put out for bid and everything, and sit down with the engineer. There were some things that we put in there that maybe we didn't understand completely. We like power outlets throughout the truck. And when we put so many in there, they're like, you're asking for a lot. Well, when they do it, it's like a double box instead of a single box. So we had like double the outlets, stuff like that. But a lot of the stuff you see here, that 120 volt outlet wire to the shoreline, we saved $1,000. There's a 120 volt power strip, which costs us $286. We went from $1,091 per outlet to $286. We expect the certain pound front axle. They said, unless you want a rough ride, you better go with this other one. When we switched, it was a $40 savings. When you go down to the bottom of the handrails, what they're finding out, a lot of this stuff is safety issues. The grab rails where you get up in the truck and on our old truck are like metal, and they're jagged edges, and people get cut on them. So when you look at the handrails, the rear cab, interior door, black rubberized, they coat them so it doesn't get abrasive on your hands. So that was a $330 cost. We put a USB power port because we do have a laptop in the fire engine. The hose bed, we went from a vinyl, which covers the whole hose bed and covers up the hose. So if your hose gets wet, you cover it up and never dries. So the rear hose bed got switched to a whipping type hose bed cover. The fasteners that go with it was next. And the big expense was the warning light. Some of the lights we spec, they recommend in today's world with all the fire trucks getting hit on the highway and car wrecks. We went from an 8-module light bar to a 14-module light bar, which was a $1,300 increase. And then we put additional lights on the front and side at a $558 cost. And then the paint, we went with the 2-tone to match the ladder truck, and it's $398.44. So there's everything there except for the paint was basically safety issues, and the front axle, by the recommendation of the engineer, you really didn't want that heavier axle because he said it beat you to death around here. So anybody have any questions?
No, I think it's pretty well laid out here, and I don't think it's an unreasonable request. I would.
The light bar is a big issue. I mean, we're on the 4H all the time at night. Every day I see 3, 4, 5 fire trucks getting slammed on the highway and firemen getting injured. The more lights we have, the better off we are. So those are really safety issues, and it will help out a lot.
Okay, are there any questions or comments for Chief Kimball?
I move we accept the change order.
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Thomas that we accept the recommended change order. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Rylands. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, JB, anything else?
Thank you. That's it, sir.
Thanks, JB.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, JB.
JB,
You're welcome.
what time's the meeting with volunteers next Thursday?
It is at 7 o'clock next Thursday.
I'm glad you asked that, Jack. Thank you.
Be safe, JB,
And
and tell
everybody, any of you all are welcome to come down, and we're also going to have a group of pastors here. We are creating a PTSD group that's big in the fire service right now. There's a lot of suicide going on in the fire and EMS service. So we are reaching out to our local pastors for people to be able, our members to be able to talk to, and that'll be the first night a couple of them are going to attend our meeting and really scope out who we are and what we do, and really look at people and talk to them. So hopefully it'll be a beginning of a good alignment with our local churches and stuff. So.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Chief. Tell everybody we appreciate what they're doing, and we hope everybody stays safe.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Take care, JB.
All right, Mr. Attorney Tom O'Neill has signaled to me that he would rather defer to the strategic issues discussion. We'll go ahead and move forward to correspondence and information. There are several items in your packet. Buckhannon Fire Department grant denial. Callie and JB both alluded to for the SAFER grant. That usually is a spring time frame, so we can have that discussion after the first of the year if we want to apply for it again. Zoning Board of Appeals, 72 Bogus Street. You can see the zoning board has met about a variance there. CALEA confirmation letter for web-based assessment. We're all aware that the City Police Department has received great news in that aspect, and we wish them well, and we thank them for all the work that they've done up until this point. Art 26201 news release, First Energy Foundation gift of $5,000 in support of the Colonial Theater. Myself and Amby and Councilman Rylands and many other community members. Former Mayor McCauley was there. We really appreciate First Energy's partnership with our city, and we appreciate the gift to the Colonial Theater as we continue to make that a reality downtown. Proclamation, American Indian Heritage Month for November 2020. We have a CGP Foods Incorporated, which is the Shop and Save Express, a zoning form to the West Virginia ABCA Licensing Department. We have a report from the cat and dog activity from the Upshur County Commission for September of 2020. We have City Public Relations, both 8 and 9. Veterans Day program, Facebook live stream, online, and broadcast on Channel 3 on November 11th at 11 a.m. And then this evening earlier, Dennis let me know that the Cub Scouts are having a presentation at 1 p.m. at the Heavener Cemetery. That will also be streamed live on line as well as on Channel 3, both of those. City plants 2 hybrid American chestnut trees, as Mr. Arnold alluded to earlier, at the Riverwalk in collaboration with the West Mon. We also have a FOIA request, Retain Equity LLC for unclaimed property. City Attorney's letter to Altice USA. This is, remember we had a cable board meeting and we passed along the long list of concerns from our citizens to Altice, which is the parent company of Suddenlink. And then finally we have a West Virginia Department of Transportation Alternative Transportation Grant Award, Poundstone River Walk Trail number 4 project. Okay.
Robbie,
yes.
I think it's interesting to note that I believe that Altice is 15 pages of concerns and complaints.
Yeah, there are several.
And I had a very interesting conversation with our city attorney, Tom, the other day, which I forgot, that we have a non-exclusive franchise agreement with the
That's
company.
correct.
And that makes it extremely difficult to put maybe some pressure on that we would like to put on. Is that safe to say, Tom?
Well, it's correct. it's correct to say that we have a non-exclusive franchise with them. I think I might disagree with the characterization that makes it more difficult to put pressure on. I mean, it does with respect to renewal of the franchise.
Well, there's a huge difference in how we have been treated since the Suddenlink had been purchased. And the previous individual that was with the customer relations was extremely easy to work with. That's what I've been told by many people. And the new individual, the one that's been there for a while, is not quite so.
Well, I understand she just has a larger territory.
Yeah, but she still needs to deal with customers, and it's apparently not being done.
What I would say is that the non-exclusive nature of the current franchise, and I expect that the council would want that term to remain in the future franchise agreement. What that means is that there is no legal impediment to a competing operator coming into serving the same market. So hopefully, market competition may at some point, come into play and address some of these.
I think that's the problem. The market's changed so dramatically with so many other opportunities that are not cable.
I would note that Suddenlink has announced that their Buckhannon office will be reopened. And that, I know a number of the complaints had to do with the closure of that facility. So that decision is being reversed.
Well, that's really good to know, because I know some people that had them for phone service did not have phone service for days, even though I heard a couple weeks. And that's just not acceptable.
Well, I'm a Suddenlink subscriber myself, and I use it for my broadband internet, which is very important right now with our kids, especially on remote learning. And we experience a high frequency of brief service drops, and I called and had a technician come out to see if there was some problem in the line at my house, and he said no, it's a problem all over town. It has to do with signal reliability, and they're working to address it. For what it's worth.
Well, I think the more we can address this in a public meeting, it might help our residents feel that we're trying to do as much as we can.
Right. Yes.
I want to make sure that we're clear too. We have although the Upshur County Commission is in their process right now with their franchise agreement, our franchise agreement technically is not set to renew until 2023. So I want to make sure that we're clearly stating that we do not share a franchise agreement. We each have a franchise agreement, and although theirs renews presently at this year, ours still has 3 years. So I want to make sure that when folks see that a franchise has been renewed or hasn't been renewed, the city's is not up right now per se. Ours is at 2023, theirs is now. So we do have 2 separate agreements. I want to make sure folks know that. Anything else relative to Suddenlink? Okay. Under the consent agenda, we have the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting, which was 10/15 of 2020, and then a special meeting on 10/22 of 2020. Approval of the building and wiring permits, approval of payment of the bills, and acceptance of the 2021 holiday schedule. You'll see that in your packet about 3/4 of the way back. You see New Year's Day, obviously a lot of the ones that are every year. New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, Good Friday, Memorial Day, West Virginia Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving Friday, Christmas, and New Year's 2022 is on there too. Those are the proposed holiday schedule for the city of Buckhannon for 2021. Does anybody have anything they want to add or relative to the consent agenda? Okay, I will entertain a motion that we accept our consent agenda. We have a motion by Mary. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Dave. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pam, are you still with us?
She said she might have to leave.
She's not, and she has said she is not feeling well, and that she might not be able to stay the entire meeting.
Okay, all right.
I think we all heard her say it.
Okay, sounds good to me. All right, we, let the minutes show that we've passed the consent agenda. Under strategic issues, we've already dispensed with F1 and F2. F3, everyone's favorite topic, we have the approval of ordinance 447 for first reading of downtown parking. I will defer to our city attorney to walk us through the changes that were made. If you'll recall, we had this up for first reading at our last council meeting. We weren't comfortable with it and wanted to go back to the drawing board for some things. I think that we've got this maybe where we want to be now, so I will defer to Tom and then we'll have a discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll read the ordinance by caption and then summarize its, yes.
Is it in our packet?
Yes.
It is, it's right at the end.
Right at the end, okay, got it.
The council has before it ordinance number 447 of the city of Buckhannon, amending, modifying, and reenacting ordinance number 409, also known as ordinance number 2016-008, ordinance number 422, and ordinance number 435 of the city of Buckhannon with respect to the enforcement thereof. The following the council's prior meeting 3 weeks ago, the council members were encouraged to submit their comments with respect to the draft. I heard from a couple of members of the council and have reworked the draft to reflect those comments. In summary, this ordinance makes the following changes to the prior draft. Every January 1st, all the slate will be wiped clean with respect to offenses and warnings. That each calendar year, each violator will be entitled to receive 2 warnings prior to being issued a citation. However, no person can receive more than 1 warning per 24-hour period. The ordinance provides for escalating fines for subsequent offenses. First offense is $25, second offense is $50, third offense or subsequent is $100. So under this model, a person would have had to have 5 violations before they were to be fined $100 for a third, which would be their third offense. 2 warnings plus a third offense.
And this is based on license plate per 1 vehicle. So if they had multiple cars, they could have multiple warnings.
Yes, I believe the enforcement is based on the vehicle
Yes.
registration. That's right. And finally, it provides that moving vehicles into adjacent spaces or spaces on the same street does not reset a person's 2-hour time limit. That is those are the suggestions that were submitted, and where there was conflict, there was some kind of massaging, and the mayor indicates that there were conversations had and some consensus reached around this draft. So that is the ordinance.
I think it's the moving across the street, or whatever. I think it's all downtown on-street parking. Is that not?
It is, if you are any parking space, you cannot move to another parking space on the same street. So you can move, so if you're on
North Spring Street.
North Spring and then you move around to Main Street, yeah, you can reset your time. But if you roll your car forward 1 space, like I'm sure we've all done from time to time, I admit that I've done that, you don't get a reset of your time anymore. If you're parked down by the Dairy Queen, you move down by the courthouse, your time does not reset. If you move onto a separate street, you get your time resets. I thought that was the most straightforward way of dealing with that issue.
I think it was also I spoke to several members of the council, and then saw some dialogue back and forth through some emails. I think we are all in agreement that we don't want to spend, we do not want to spend one more penny on a apparatus that's going to enforce our parking in our downtown. This is a 3-block downtown. With increased patrolling by our parking enforcement officer, we should be able to keep this maintained and keep this enforced the right way for the ordinance to work.
May I suggest that the annual January 1st reset really will simplify enforcement.
Yeah, I agree.
Amby, up till this point in the past couple of years, we've budgeted half of this full-time person, right? For parking enforcement?
Consolidated pays 50%, yes. for
What's
parking.
that gross amount with benefits or?
Well, around 35,000, I'm gonna say in that area with benefits, because you have insurance too.
35 plus benefits?
No, that's with the benefits. They don't get paid very much.
Okay. So what, you're saying 17.5 we're budgeting for enforcement?
Yes.
Would it be possible, and I know this probably doesn't have to do with this ordinance, but, I think that we need to do, or something might be more effective, is to do random, 1 day a week, 3 days a month, or
That's what
something.
we're doing that now.
But for 21 hours, instead of from 9 to 3, and utilize some part-time people without benefits. I mean, ask VIPs or someone else, or, because right now the people know that, there's the enforcement is limited when it is 9 to 3, and
You want enforcement in the evenings, is that what you're asking?
I think we need to enforce the policy randomly for the entire time that it's in effect. But that's my own, I don't want to spend any more money doing it, but.
Andy, get out there and work for free.
Don't go home now.
Right. And I don't expect that, but I think there may be an opportunity to utilize some part-time people. And I don't know about whether they need bonded or insured or what to do this work, but.
Although from a fundamental standpoint, I understand what you're saying, but it has been my observation experience, and perhaps others would have different experience, but it doesn't seem like the evenings are, and Sunday afternoons and Saturday afternoons are the problem. It seems like the problems arise during the business day, mainly Tuesday through Friday. Mondays are lighter days downtown because there's some stores and restaurants that are closed from the week, as carryover from the weekend. It seems to me, in being downtown in the evenings, that we're okay. There's a lot of there are several spaces to be had downtown after 5 p.m. That's just what I've seen, but.
And we're also at a different time period compared to other years with COVID. There's not as many people going out today either.
Depends on the day. There's some.
I understand that, but I mean, it's not a
Yeah, but we're putting something in place here for
the future.
the future.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I just,
But as, CJ, can I say, you didn't have any issues with the ordinance itself? Just you wanted to...
no, the procedures of enforcing the ordinances could be saved for another day.
Sure.
I agree with the mayor on focusing the enforcement of the ordinance during business hours. I think the whole point of the ordinance is to support our local businesses so that you can have a flow of
Right.
customers in and out of your establishment. So, 5:30, 6 o'clock at night until 6:37 in the morning, I don't see why there would be a point in enforcing that. That's my perspective. The only thing I ask with this ordinance is to be done right. If we're going to do it, we do it right. And it has to be manageable. And as long as adequate record keeping can be maintained, and as long as people are treated fairly and we're consistent in our approach and what we do. As CJ has recited numerous times, these people are going to be ambassadors for our city that are working on the enforcement. I just want it done right, so we don't have to come back again and reinvent the wheel. That's my concern. And I will vote for the ordinance. I'm not thrilled with the graduated fine. I just think it needs to be consistent because it simplifies the spreadsheet. But I can go with the graduated penalties, that's fine. But that's my 2 cents. And but I think it is doable. And if we find that the record keeping isn't manageable, we need to come back. If it's not policy, then we need to put in a procedure to make sure we can have adequate record keeping so that, we don't end up with a mess or something.
Yeah, I mean, this person's now going to not only have to know that this particular license plate or vehicle has had 2 warnings, but they've also had 1 ticket, so now they're writing a $50 instead of $25. So there's going to have to be more information accessible to the individual because they're writing the ticket right then. But do you see that as being an issue, Amy? What do you think?
Honestly, I think you need to have 1 fine. When you're trying to graduate something and that parking enforcement officer is out there and she's trying to determine, she's standing there trying to determine through records, what we're using with a cloud-based Excel, that it's going to be harder for her to scroll through these dates and try to find, is this 1, 2, or 3? I can see that being confusing to her.
Yeah, I don't think that's the person that should be doing it, is that you just get a citation or ticket, whatever, and then when you go to do, meet people here to take care of it, they would have the information at that point in time.
You have to charge them
At the point.
So she has to put either 25 or 50 or 100?
On the ticket.
Do we currently have people that are paying multiple tickets and don't really care about how much it costs?
No, I mean, not really. We don't issue very many tickets. I mean, no.
We don't want to issue tickets. We
Yeah,
want
that's what
to.
we understand, so that's,
My point with the graduated fine is that if someone's going to deliberately take advantage of the system and $25 is just it every time, that's not enough to deter it. But if you start getting $50 and $100 fines, if it gets to that point, clearly there's a problem, and that should be enough of a sting to get that person off the street. That was the thought process behind. I understand but perhaps maybe we can work on the spreadsheet or the streamline of how this is done to reduce the potential confusion of the enforcement officer out there, so that they know, when they're approaching this vehicle and they're about ready to issue a citation, they know exactly. Okay.
I think you're making it too difficult. We ought to just have 1 fee, like Andy said, and whether it's 25 or 50, But I want to ask why you have to have the amount of money on the ticket itself.
Because it's a charging document. You need to notify the person at the time of their give a notice of the violation, what the penalty is.
We can't just
That's
say.
a due process.
We're just saying you're going to have a penalty and it will be a fine.
No,
You
yeah, you
just
have
put
to-
it between,
you have to
it'll
give
either be $25 or $100 based on what you've had previously.
You have to notify them of what, I mean, you would have to say everybody that you're liable for a fine of between $25 and $100, and what you're gonna do is slap everybody with a notice that says you're liable for up to $100. And I don't think that's the message, I don't hear that that's the message that you all want to send to the public, that somebody is on notice that they may be charged with up to $100 on a first offense, because that's how the,
Yeah.
unless you want to give them a three-page, not three-page, but a very large document,
But this is just for a 3-block area of Main Street.
I mean, that's a due process issue,
It just seems like a really,
I want to take us back to the reason we're having this conversation, the reason we spent however many council meetings on this is because we're not trying to be arbitrary and to be, overarching on a visitor. We're trying to make this easy and be friendly to a visitor or someone that just may not realize what our rules are. The whole point of this is to clean up the chronic violators downtown that are taking the spaces away from potential shoppers in our stores.
let's use a car.
That's what the point of this is. And so I really believe that it's going to take more than a $25 fine each time to get the chronic violators off the street.
You also, I've had these kind of issues at a college where I worked in Virginia. And there were multiple abuses in the parking lots. And there was a great warning system from the students that, by gosh, they're going to get a ticket or something. We bought car boots. And you put them on a vehicle and they can't move the vehicle until they come to the security part.
I don't know.
Yeah,
if
we
can
don't
do
want
that.
to do that. I mean, you could, I don't know if you want to. I mean,
No, but I mean, it just seems to me we're wringing our hands with, if we know the name of the people that are abusing it, we're to go right to them and say, stop it.
We have that.
We have.
And they don't pay any attention to it?
No.
The individual moved
They're-
his car across the street.
Well, let's give them a $500 fine.
Oh, my.
Maybe they'll listen to us next time.
That's just.
No, I don't want to use our power and authority in that manner.
Well, they're being jerks.
All right, I want to go ahead and I want to call for the question to approve ordinance 447, revised parking downtown. Remember, this is a first reading of a 2-reading or will it be 3? It's a 2-reading ordinance.
So it is a 3-reading?
Well, I think it is because we're adding.
Sorry.
It's a
Yeah, you're right.
reading.
Yeah, so it's a 3-reading ordinance. So this is the first reading of a 3-reading ordinance. I'll go ahead and call for the question. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by CJ, we have a second by Mary. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Let the record show that one is opposed. That'd be Councilman Thomas. Ordinance passes on first reading. We'll have more fun with this in 2 weeks, and then in 2 weeks again. I do want to thank Tom and the council for weighing in on this, particularly Jack Rigger, CJ Rylands, and Randy Sanders for taking bull by the horns and having good dialogue over the past 3 weeks.
Yes, they did a good job.
And you, David. I saw the emails from these 3, so I know you called in several times. So
It's not an easy thing to do.
no, it's not. It's not.
I'll probably vote yes to the next couple.
We figured that.
I just had to get it out of your system.
I'm just honored.
You're an old buddy, Daddy.
Old funny day. Come on,
Okay.
got it.
All right. Next 2 items should go very quickly. We need to Ratify the City of Buckhannon Board appointment fiscal year 2020-2021, Charles W. Gibson Public Library. If you go to the very back page, we've got Susan Beath for a 2-year term, William O'Brien for a 4-year term, Charlotte Butch Rainey for a 3-year term, Martha Edgell for a 5-year term, and Beth Cup Post for a 1-year term. Beth is filling an unexpired term of someone I've never heard of before. That'd be Jane Skinner. No, my mother was served on the library board, and when I became mayor, she thought it was best if she resigned from the post. So Beth Cup Post took her position.
Do we need to check her book collection out?
My mother has a heck of a book collection, so she could have a library of her own. So I'll entertain a motion that we accept that list.
So moved.
We have a motion by Dave Thomas, a second by Mary Allball. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. F5, I will defer to Amby. We had a brief conversation about this earlier. This would be approval to appoint an audit committee for the fiscal year 2020-2021.
Yeah, so an audit committee is necessary this year because we have to seek firms that can do our audit, approved firms that can do our audit, and we have to send out RFPs to them, and the state auditor's office requires that we have an audit committee to help with that selection. And in the past, the last audit committee we had was to select an audit for 2 years. So we're getting ready to send out RFPs, and I need an audit committee. The people that were on that before was Rich Clemens, Dave Thomas, Nancy Shobe, and myself. So I don't know if you want to, I've asked Dave and I've asked Rich if they want to be on the committee. And they both said they would be.
Okay.
I don't know if that's acceptable. Really, that's what it's for. I do all the work. I send them the information. They review the auditors. They've sent the RFPs back in, and we select from that.
Okay. Council, are you okay with reappointing the previous audit committee?
You have
Good
enough
with that?
people?
Yes.
Okay.
Amby's worked with them before, so,
I don't have a problem with that.
okay. So we will accept Amby's recommendation. I'll entertain a motion that we accept
So moved.
Amby's recommendation of the audit committee for fiscal year 2021. We have a motion by Mary. Do we have a second? We have a second by Jack. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay, since you are serving on it, that's understandable. Okay, we have our audit committee, so if you want to go ahead and proceed, that's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, we're down to comments and announcements. We'll start with Mary Allball.
I want to remind everybody that November the 11th at 11 o'clock, we're having a very short Veterans Day program at Jabon Park. And you all are going to do the virtual thing, Dennis?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be,
Mayor, thank you for being there.
Oh, I'll be there.
Okay, and
Looking forward to it.
it'll be live streamed on
okay,
Channel 3.
That's good. That's good. And other than that, it was a good meeting tonight.
I know you're a proud mama too.
I know, and thank you for everybody doing that.
Pam has stepped away from the meeting, so we've got CJ.
I'd like to congratulate Erin on her award and wish her luck in the national competition which she's now entered in. And it's a positive statement on our education system.
I agree. Thank you, CJ. J. David Thomas.
I agree with what CJ said about Aaron. I thought her acceptance of the proclamation was one of the best acceptance speeches I've ever heard sitting in this room. I thought it was very thoughtful, and I'm sure she's an inspiration to the young students that she's involved with. I got a really good deal for some people if they're interested. Lori Harvey, some of us received in our mail packet Family Resource Network is having a raffle of 3 different pieces of furniture. They're all handmade, and it's 1 ticket for $5 or 5 tickets for $20. And they're sort of behind the ball this year because of the COVID, and also Lori had some health issues, and we're going to have an opening November the 11th. So I got extra tickets here. If anybody wants to run at me at the end of the meeting, I'll be glad to take a $20 bill and give you 5 raffle tickets. But then when we're looking at things like raffles, I am very concerned about the absolute devastation that some not-for-profits are having because of COVID. And for example, I just learned today, and I got to follow up on it, that the Salvation Army is not going to have any bell ringing this year.
Limited.
That is one of their major fundraisers for the year. And I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody, but I do think sometimes we're doing things, to me, a bell ringer. I've been a bell ringer lots of times, and sometimes I dressed up as Santa Claus even. And it's a fun time. You can social distance and so forth, and I just think sometimes we overdo things with this COVID thing. And but I want you to think, and same thing with your churches. We're not having regular attendance at churches, or very many going, and they still need financial support. And there's more and more not-for-profits that are suffering. So think about individuals and organizations that need our help. If you have the financial wherewithal to do it, please do it. One other thing, I've gotten several phone calls in the last 3 or 4 months about some unruly people down at the river trail. And I think if anybody has an opportunity, they're getting some grief, take a picture of them and turn it into the police department. And I've also had many phone calls about some unsavory characters down on the river trail with bicycles and backpacks waiting at certain locations. So I know Matt's not here, and something we'll need to talk about in a couple weeks. And I wish everybody well, and have a great weekend. That's it.
Thanks, Dave. Jack?
I want to congratulate Mrs. Erin Anderson.
Anderson.
When I was principal at the middle school, I did hire her as a reading specialist. I was very much aware of her abilities and talents at that time, but I left for another opportunity. And so she certainly will represent Upshur County well, and hopefully the nation well. That would be tremendous.
Yeah, it would.
And it just dawned on me today, or actually during the meeting I saw, November 5th, this is the 35th anniversary of the major flood, when you think about that.
Yep.
And that was a very devastating time. And I know that for many people it probably brings back some bad memories. And yet at the same time, I remember living in Barber County at the time, and Bevington and Philippi and Junior in the different areas of the community, and you can hear people pulling together and supporting one another. And Lord willing, we'll see more of those anytime soon. And it's a privilege to serve on the council with these fine folks. And the staff of the city, they're just second to none, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. And that's about all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Glad to have you, Jack.
Just piggybacking on what Jack said, I think we've got a wonderful council. I really do. And I think we're working very well together. I appreciate the dialogue that we can have, and I also appreciate that we can see a first draft of an ordinance, and if it's not something that we want to move forward on, we have no problem in taking a step back and getting it to where we want it to be. And nobody's trying to force anything down anybody's throat. We work very well together and seem to have a great deal of mutual respect. So I wholeheartedly agree, Jack. This morning, I put on a Kelly Green shirt, which Monica from my Buckhannon said I look good in Kelly Green. and we had a presentation. This is the 50th anniversary of the Marshall University plane crash. November 14th, 1970, 75 people were killed when a Southern Airways Flight 932 crashed in Huntington just before Tri-State Airport. And that, my dad has said for years, the day Huntington changed was the day that plane crashed. And so one of our very own, John Young, which a scholarship and award is present at Buckhannon Upshur High School in his honor and his memory. John Young was a graduate of Buckhannon, and he was on that team wearing number 86 when that plane went down. And so we did a proclamation this morning and a small presentation out front with some of his classmates and some just folks from the community. We waved some Marshall flags, and it was a nice time. And so it's unfortunate that I don't know that they're going to be able to have the massive ceremony that they do in Huntington every year. I'm sure most or all have seen the movie. It's a great movie, We Are Marshall, but on November 14th they have a ceremony. They stop the fountain in the middle of the campus and they don't turn it back on again until spring, when they were given the go-ahead to play freshmen on the football team to bring the program back. It still remains as the worst national tragedy for sports in the country. So we had a good time with that this morning. I also want to extend thanks to First Energy for the $5,000 gift for Colonial Theater. We really do appreciate that partnership. That's all I have, and of course, I can't be any prouder of Aaron. I've known Aaron forever, and it's hard for me to say Anderson. I still call her Aaron Allball. So, but anyway, we're thrilled that she's part of our community. I would entertain a motion that at 8:38 we adjourn. All right, folks. Have a great weekend.